there are people in the Democratic Party who are saying he's a loser and that he shouldn't run because I guess what? They've got all the rest of the people are winners. I mean, based on what? What is their rationale for saying that all these other people and these names that are in the hopper are somehow in a better position to win the nomination than Mandela Barnes?
Earl, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you, Pat. I can't believe it's already Wednesday.
I can't either, and I can't believe that we're now less than 1 year away from big elections in Wisconsin, including the gubernatorial election. And I basically want to pick up where I left off yesterday, talking to Dan Schaefer, and then we were talking a bit, you and I, last week about the Democratic field and the extent to which I don't know that I've ever heard so much pre-candidacy buzz about will he or won't he. I mean, we said a little bit about Josh Kaul, will he or won't he. 8 years ago, it was Tony Evers, will he or won't he get in? And now we're doing this with Mandela Barnes, but it's going off in a direction I think a lot of folks did not see coming and are not happy with.
Well, I know Mandela Barnes well. I've known him since his early stages of his political career. I am in contact with him. He's in contact with me a couple times a week now. So I kind of know a little something that most may be thinking that they know but don't know. But what I want to talk about, Pat, is the fact that there are people in the Democratic Party who are saying he's a loser and that he shouldn't run because I guess what? They've got all the rest of the people are winners. I mean, based on what? What is their rationale for saying that all these other people and these names that are in the hopper are somehow in a better position to win the nomination than Mandela Barnes? Whether people like it or not, he did run a close national race and barely lost by a whisker to a sitting United States senator. Let's be honest. What's at the root of this, Pat, are people who are afraid that if he gets in the race, their goose is cooked. Well, that's the way it is, Pat. Everybody in this country who is not a criminal has a right to run for office. Why are we trying to prevent this man from running for office?
And by the way, as seen in the White House, criminals can run for office too. We just live in a different time. Let me turn it this way then, because everything that you're saying indicates to me that the former lieutenant governor and former U.S. Senate candidate is still extremely interested in running, may announce at some point here. So let's be forward looking on this. If Mandela Barnes decides to get into the race, there are a couple of different ways he can go. He can just, run against Trump. He can run against Republicans, but he can also, because as some people say, he wasn't, quote unquote, battle tested in the primary. Maybe he has to start off his campaign by, doing direct contrasts to the people already in the race: David Crawley, Kelda Royce, Missy Hughes, Fran Hong, and everybody else who's going to get in. Does he have to come in with like sharp elbows right away if you were advising him, or what's the best way for him to enter the race for governor if he chooses to?
Well, number one, that's not who he is. I don't think he should change who he is in order to please people. He's not a guy who's going to do that. That's not his nature. What Mandela Barnes should do is be Mandela Barnes. And I'll tell you this much. Many of those names that you mentioned, I don't know him from Adam. We're talking about somebody who has to defeat a strong Republican candidate. You and I have been around a while, Pat. We remember like yesterday, Scott Walker and his time and his tenure as governor of this state. Do people want that again? Do they want to see a return of that? Because after this is all said and done, Pat, aren't we hoping that the candidate, whoever that is, can defeat whoever the Republicans are going to put up? And so with all the names that you mentioned, I don't know any of them that, I think can defeat whoever that Republican candidate is outside of Mandela Barnes. And so whether people like it or not, he went toe-to-toe with the sitting United States Senator. And people can say that makes him a loser, but those are people who really have an axe to grind outside of, looking at this thing through the proper prism.
And let me tell you something else that has changed since he ran for Senate in 2022 is that voters have become very wise to the billionaire influence in our politics. We saw that in the voters' rebuke of Elon Musk in the last state Supreme Court election. We specifically saw it yesterday in Pennsylvania, where one billionaire tried to take out 5 progressive state Supreme Court justices, and people made that the issue and they jumped all over it. You talk about Mandela Barnes falling short against Ron Johnson, and as people have heard me say over and over, no, he fell short against Ron Johnson and a couple of billionaires who propped him up. And people are a lot more wise to that now than they were in 2022. And I'm also glad you invoked Scott Walker, because whether it's Tom Tiffany or Josh Schoeman, whoever becomes that Republican nominee will talk a lot about how much they love Trump. But if voters keep in mind that they're going to govern like Scott Walker, who took this state immeasurably backwards in his 8 years, I think that's the kind of message any Democratic nominee for governor should be sharing.
Without question, it seemed like yesterday, but I remember what the state was with the control of Scott Walker and his minions. And so we've got, in the end, you've got to defeat that person, whoever that person is going to be, Tom Tiffany, or if it's Michaels or whomever it is. So you need a strong person, a strong personality. Let me put it this way. Mandela Barnes is a nice guy. And I don't think that you have to be an ogre in order to win seats. And so he's battle tested. I don't know what people are talking about. He went up against, if you go up against Ron Johnson and all of that vitriol, you're a battle tested person.
We're talking to Earl Ingram. You can catch more of the What's Going On with Earl Ingram podcast over at civicmedia.us. Another topic that you've been following there and personally as well is education. And I always appreciate the ground where you stand, because there's the ground of people that are just trying to tear down our public school systems. Then there are people who are, public school advocates, but perhaps to a fault. And then there's you saying, yeah, our public schools need to be defended, but that does not make them perfect. And what were the thoughts you wanted to share about how the way we educate kids in our schools needs to change with the times?
It absolutely needs to change with the times, Pat. I was just in schools on yesterday. I'll be back in the schools on tomorrow. And just watching public schools and just watching volunteering and just watching young people who really, we're trying to educate them in an archaic way. The way that I was educated, Pat, and the way that you were educated, and that we thought everybody was going to universities, is not the right way to approach it today, especially with AI. Many management, middle management, upper management jobs aren't going to be needed. We're doing a disservice to, I think, our young people. We need to start doing what they do in Germany, what they do in France, what they do in other nations, and that's start steering young people towards trades. The last time I checked, AI is not going to replace a plumber, electrician, a steam fitter, or any of those kinds of people. And those are strong, middle class, career path, American dream path opportunities for young people. And I think one of the reasons that we won't do it, Pat, is there's so many universities in this country who don't want to shut down, and money is at the heart of it. And so what we're doing is sacrificing the lives of a lot of young people and their futures. We need to start looking at the trades and steering young people in those areas.
Well, the thing is, we are seeing some of those schools shut down. We've seen these small colleges and now these small UW campuses go away, in large part because of a demographic cliff that is out there. And so why not take advantage, if you will, of that change in the dynamic and do what you just said about Germany and in other countries, I was saying 15 years ago as a state legislator, is that we need to make senior year of high school mean something again. Right now, people are more or less just treading water, and instead this should be a time to expose them to all things. I am a absolute supporter of a liberal arts education, but I'm also an absolute supporter of an affordable trades education, if that's the way that folks want to go. All of that will take an investment in our school systems, and unfortunately we've got too many politicians that they have the inertia. They just don't want to make the investments that could help exactly in the path that you just cited.
Well, Pat, we've got to educate young people into the value of trades. The greatest opportunities for young people in this nation right now to live a strong middle class life and the American dream is through the trades, because baby boomers are retiring. The opportunities are there. We've got the other part of it is the last time I checked, once you become a tradesperson, you get involved in that, and you'll be trained without having any debt. And, contrast that to liberal arts educations where people owe hundreds of thousands of dollars that they'll never get out from under. I'm not saying that we don't need liberal arts education. I'm saying that we need both. And when I was a young guy, we had both. And so we need to get back to that.
Absolutely. And by the way, you've talked about this. You talked about so many issues. We all try to have fairly well-rounded shows and podcasts on Civic Media. Yours might be the most well-rounded, because along with that, you've got a recent examination of the non-United States of America with Dr. Robert Craig from Citizen Action. You've got Dr. Omar talking about hypertension as it relates to blood pressure. I mean, you seriously, you're covering it all on your podcast.
Well, we've got some podcasts in the hopper right now as we speak that'll be up and out and going. And I just think that, Pat, what we should do is there's so many different aspects to life that we need to cover all those different aspects. And all of us, regardless of whether we're in rural America or urban America, face the same thing. We're human beings, and
Exactly.
we face the same kind of realities.
And you can learn more at the at civicmedia.us. Click on shows for the What's Going On podcast with Earl Ingram. Earl, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Always good talking to you. See you later.
You bet.